lot of our kids don't want to be in school. School's hard for them, school's difficult, and school isn't relative to what they're going through at home. And schools are being asked more and more to provide a structure and a stability, I guess, that they would need at the home level, and they aren't getting that there, and so we feed them breakfast and we feed them lunch.
So we have young teachers, usually from middle to upper income backgrounds, teaching really low income students. Macon has some of the worst poverty across the nation, and that disconnect is really challenging because you bring two different sets of backgrounds, two different sets of how they're raised, two different sets of understanding of what the school is about, what their life is about, really.
I'm not saying like parents are doing a bad job. I'm just saying I think a lot of home issues overflow into schools, causing schools to not be successful, but we still have the expectation we need to be successful.
The total expenditure budget for 2016 in the Bibb County School District is $287.5 million. This constitutes a $2.4 million difference, or a 0.8% decrease from 2015's budget. Because of low budgets, teachers and students often find it difficult to acquire the materials they need for proper learning.
In my senior year, biggest year of high school, the math class I was taking, we didn't even have enough textbooks in the class for everyone to take their own textbook and be able to take it home and study and things like that. And that was a big problem. Students had to share textbooks. While in contrast, our football team was able to get new jerseys pretty much 3 of the 4 years I was there. And so I just feel like some of the school's priorities weren't really where they needed to be.
Like having textbooks for my math class. My teacher worked really hard and basically nagged people at the board until they gave her the textbook she needed for our class.
We had the Learning Support Center, so they were always there to help if you needed help with papers or whatnot, or we had tutorial after school, so it was nice, another 50-minute window that you could go meet with your teachers and get homework done or ask questions or just really do whatever you needed to.
My teachers were motivating, they were encouraging. The school provided, well, sometimes falling apart, the books where they were up-to-date books, and we always got what we needed.
I think there are a lot of great resources that came out of it, and I think we had pretty much everything covered.
For many residents of Bibb County, the safety of their kids while in school continues to be a lasting concern.
Fights were a thing that were pretty common.
Public school had that sort of rep, and you always read about it in the newspapers that things would happen. And my parents definitely felt safer sending me to a private school. And I never really experienced anything in that aspect. I never felt unsafe where I was.
On the safety side of things, there were quite a few fights at our school, but there was this weird, everyone knew about fights, and the fighting was almost like an understood thing, and people would let it go until there was a defined winner, and then they would stop it.
You just hear almost on a weekly basis, about some student who brings a gun to a public school, or how there was a fight, or there's a lot of conflict between students and teachers, and there's all sorts of different issues that you would just hear about.
I felt completely safe. I never felt like I was not going to be okay at my school. We had a gun incident one time my freshman year, and it's hilarious. So, they call some kids brought a gun into school, and the school shuts down for 2 hours, and they found the gun hidden in a ceiling. Some kid had brought it to school, and it was so old it literally fell apart when they confiscated it. That is the one safety issue I had, and it was a complete joke.
A fight, a really bad fight, had taken place between two students upstairs. One student was really, really hurt, as in they had to take him out on a stretcher. And the other student who was involved in the fight, a lot of people knew him and stuff. I personally didn't know the kid, but there were like these stairs that led from upstairs and went through the cafeteria. So they bought the student to get him out the front door. They bought the student down the stairs, and so there were a bunch of kids in there, and when they were bringing him down the stairs, a lot of kids who knew who the student was and what the situation was, they started cheering for the kid as if he had done something really, really good by being up another student, and I just think that kind of creates a foundation or fosters an environment that almost says, it's okay for this type of stuff to happen. And lack of response on behalf of the administration doesn't help. It definitely it glosses over the problem. It recognizes that there is a problem, but it doesn't there are no steps really taken to fix the problem.
Parents in Macon often enroll their kids in private school because of safety, religious, and economic reasons. 84% of students are enrolled in public school, 16% are in private.
Well, there's just this sense that you felt like you were in a better position, I guess, being in a private school, just because a lot of the public schools had a really bad rep, I guess, in Macon. And I know that from the public school perspective, they thought that we were very, stuck up and whatnot. So I think there was kind of that view.
It started out as they were the rich white kids who decided to go there because their parents had money.
Just based off my experience with my brother who goes to private school, there's a different personality they gain because since he's gone there since he was in 6th grade and he's in 11th grade now. I can definitely see a change in him, and it's not a good change.
And if I had been stuck in a school where my graduating class was 40 and all the girls hung out all the time, and if you weren't a part of that one group, you just weren't a part of anything, I would not have been okay. It would have been way harder for me socially.
There was always an unspoken rivalry between public and private schools, whether it be in sports or academics, but I saw them eventually leading towards the end of the year as an equal to beat in soccer or in academics. So they were never they went from being these people who had money and paid to go to school because they wanted to go somewhere nice to people who were just like me. They decided to pay for school, and that's cool. They can do that if they want to, but I mean, from private school people I know, the result was pretty similar.
I remember that it was very different from my 1st through 5th grade years. I remember that the academics were much more rigorous at St. Joseph as opposed to Porter. There was a lot more to be involved in, and it was just, I could really tell there's a big difference between the two types of schools.
We definitely have schools that need to be improved. There's no doubt about it. It's been really impressive the last couple of years. Graduation rates have skyrocketed.
If I were a parent in Macon, I probably wouldn't send my kid to a public school.
In 2012, Romain Dalamand was hired as the new superintendent of Bibb County Schools. He was fired after less than 2 years for multiple violations and allegations against the school board, and was responsible for around $52 million of missing funds.
There's been a lot of improvement over the past couple of years, especially with the new superintendent in Bibb County, Curtis Jones. He really has done a great job at helping transform our public schools for the better. But there's definitely still a lot of room for improvement.
According to some, one improvement would be to eliminate Common Core, a system which incorporates a strict set of standards each student must pass to progress grade levels.
It was up to me to improve the education in Bibb County. I would make sure that they don't do Common Core for math, because I've seen some Common Core problems, and that scares me that we're going to be teaching people to do math and to think in that way.
All the teachers might specialize in one thing, but they don't make their own lesson plans. The school gives them the lesson plans. All the teachers follow it, but they're still specialized. Honestly, I don't get it, honestly.
I sat down with a group of students who were sitting on the floor during reading time, and I was supposed to help them make sure they were on track, that kind of thing. And one student, there were 3 kids in the group, and 2 of the children were reading very fluently. They were already pretty much advanced, like I'd say second grade level, like late second grade level reading. The 3rd child didn't know anything. He didn't know how to read at all practically, and was just mumbling the words that he didn't know. And then he was just repeating the words that he did know that he's heard a million times. So I tried to confront him about it, but like in a childlike way. So I had to stop him and say, "Oh, whoa, like, are you even reading?"
So the teacher was like giving like a story on like, I think it's like frogs or something. And she was like, "Now guys, I don't want you to plagiarize, because now you gotta learn not to do that." So they were thinking that plagiarism is just like not copying word for word. So they thought that they couldn't use like any of the words that were in the book. And we were trying to explain it to them. But after like an hour into it, they still weren't understanding. Maybe like 1 kid got it or 2. The rest of them weren't. So she was just like, "Well guys, just put your writing up. That's it. We gotta move on." So like she was trying to teach it to them, but they were really understanding it. And she wasn't really going like she was just trying to explain it to them, but she wasn't like putting like, I don't want to say like she didn't put her all into like teaching them, but once they didn't grasp it after a certain time, she was just like, "Oh well, just write down what it says in the book." Like she almost like she just gave up after a certain point.
But I think a lot of it is we have a lot of policy coming down from higher level people, and it's not actually growing out of the problems we have at the school level. And so sometimes it's good to have all that accountability, but then sometimes it just leads to paperwork and red tape, and we can't actually do anything effectively because we're restricted.
Taking away the testing, or not necessarily all of it, but taking away a lot of it and replacing that with more interactive learning would be my advice to Bibb County.
As do most counties, Macon-Bibb has issues with teacher turnover. Studies show that 44% of new teachers in Georgia will leave the profession within 5 years.
Having a new teacher come in and teach a different subject each year, you know, that not only affects the school, but most importantly affects us as a student, because we can't really form relationships that we need to have with our teachers, and that'll help us succeed.
Teachers are leaving. We have a high turnover in Bibb County, and that's hard. I've been working this year with teacher retention, and a lot of people come in, don't know what to expect. They don't really want to be teaching, and they realize it's not for them, and so they leave. And so, like my seniors this year, I think they've probably had a different Spanish teacher every year that they've been here.
You get young teachers come in, and very few of them last more than 3 to 5 years. And there are a lot of reasons for that, ranging from just kind of the challenges that public school teachers face, the lack of resources that they receive across the board, and it's hard to create a strong academic environment when you have so much teacher turnover.
But while teacher turnover may be a problem, the teachers who do remain receive resounding appreciation in both public and private schools.
The teachers did such a good job of creating an environment where the students were put first, and that's what they often said kept them going, because there are a lot of challenges in teaching in public schools. They're under-resourced. They're asked to do more and more with less and less. But they definitely, at least for us, they had the mindset, we're going to do this for the student, so we're going to make it right.
I haven't met a single teacher so far that I didn't feel was a good example for me. I felt like all of them had something good to offer. Granted, these are the teachers that are staying after school to help their students.
A lot of them took a step beyond what they were normally just supposed to do and made sure that we were prepared. I know the administration, of course, it was a big focus for us to be prepared for college. But I feel like there are some people who worked with faculty and administration who kind of, like I said, took a step beyond what their job title was.
It was more with some of my teachers that I could talk to about having a different plan, and that was acceptable, but not with guidance counselors or school administration. Anything other than college was a bad word.
Jones would ultimately go to college, attending Mercer University. Her transition was smooth, but that wasn't the case for everyone.
When I got here, it was a huge culture shock. Like, people actually go to the library and study, and people do all their homework and prepare for tests, and I wasn't doing that.
The journalism is a little bit more abstract than a lot of that. I think that it's different, but I still have a lot of the same skill sets that I learned in high school that are applying now. Like, all my English classes that I took all the way through Mount DeSales were fantastic. I had the best teachers in English, and that's kind of why I love to write as much as I do now, and that's definitely carried over. Essay writing, I learned a lot in high school, and that's really helped me out in college.
There are some things that I feel like I really should have been better prepared, and there's some things I personally should have improved on myself. But as far as the workload and being able to discuss a wide variety of topics, and being one big thing at our high school was being caught up to date on like things that are going on in our nation, in our world, in our society. I feel like that's really helped me here at Mercer, which tries to apply a lot, like pretty much everything that we do on a global scale. So I feel like high school definitely prepared me well for that.
I thought I was going to come into college and it was going to be just as easy as I had it in high school. I wasn't going to have to study and I'd be able to just breeze by. But my first semester here was very difficult, and I ended up with like a 2.3 GPA. So after the first semester, I really had to like relearn how to go to school.
Some Mercer students from Macon-Bibb expressed that many of the problems they've experienced or witnessed in college originated from an intangible foe in high school.
I'd say it's the most part motivation, and not only students but of the teachers. Oftentimes I've noticed the teachers that were teaching the gifted students or the AP students they were motivating, or they were in themselves motivated to teach the students, to help them, to make sure that they were learning.
In some schools, the mindset isn't right, and that was even a problem with our school. And what I mean by mindset, I feel like amongst the students, amongst some of the faculty, I really don't think they really were focused on the job at hand. Of course, you want to graduate high school, but looking, 5-10 years beyond that, what are you going to do? There's not a great enough push by some of the faculty and administration to let these students have these thoughts like, oh yeah, well, you may not think you can, but you actually can. I feel like they just kind of let those students, just go about thinking, well, once I graduate high school, that's pretty much it for me.
They're focused on other things, so education may not be the top priority in that situation. And on top of that, these schools are in low-income areas, and the property taxes are low, and the schools aren't getting the tools that they need so that the kids can succeed.
I don't particularly like, and this isn't anything, this is across the country, the term failing school, because you have kind of the mindset that it creates for its students when they walk in. They know how well their schools are doing, and they know when a school is deemed failing by the government, and that label does a lot of damage, because would you want to go to a failing school?
I think when it comes to the education, I think if you take advantage of the opportunity they both offer, you can thrive.
Oh, one of my babies, he has been the only fight in my classroom ever. 9th grade year, my first year here, I turn around and he's kicking some kid in the face. And I'm just shocked and horrified, and it's bad. And so he gets suspended for 2 weeks. But I taught him the next year, and we worked and we worked and we worked, and we built that relationship, and we talked about social skills, and we talked about how to handle conflict and anger management. And now I teach him again. This is my 3rd year with him. And he is one of the best behaved children. He's passing all his classes. He's on track to graduation. So just seeing that my time and my energy isn't wasted is my success.
Although progress has been made for the past few years, Macon-Bibb County still has room for improvement compared to other counties in the state of Georgia.
The community aspect of the school is not as big here as it is in other counties around. Like, I know in Warner Robins, it seems like, or in Houston County, it seems like everyone loves their schools, and everyone goes out to their football games, and everyone graduated from those 4 schools, and it's a huge, great rivalry, and everyone's involved. But in Bibb County, it's just kind of school, like where your kids go. And I think without the community pushing for better schools and for more involvement, there's not a change that can happen.